Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tablelands Regional Council ordinary meeting for May. Could I remind everyone to turn their devices off or on the silent mode, please? Do we have any apologies? No, thank you. Could I ask everyone to be outstanding, please? I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we meet on today and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. We'll also observe a minute's silence as a mark of respect for the members of our community who have recently passed. We wish their family and friends peace and comfort during this challenging time. Thank you. Item 6, councillors. Do we have any declarations of any material personal interests or conflicts of interest by councillors or officers? Councillor Clifton.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 11.1 TW Headley Proprietary Limited. A member of my family is engaged as a consultant by Mr Headley, and I will be declaring my interest and leaving the room during the discussions.
Thanks very much. Councillor Hodge.
Yes, Mr Mayor, 16.3 in the confidential item, clean your home for the aged. I'm declaring a conflict of interest there as I am a board member of the clean home, so I'll be leaving the meeting as well and taking the part in the vote.
Very good, thanks Councillor Hodge. Any other declarations? Okay, thank you. We've got 2 lots of minutes to approve, councillors. If we go to the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the 27th of April, could I have a mover of those minutes to be accepted as a true and accurate record? Councillor Wilts is moving and Councillor Bilney is seconding. Those in favour of the OCM minutes of the 27th of May? Carried, thank you. We'll now go to the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting of the 11th of May. Do we have a mover of those Planning Committee minutes? Councillor Hodge is moving those. A seconder. Councillor Wilts. Those in favour of those Planning Committee meeting minutes? Carried, thank you. We might go to business arising out of the ordinary council meeting minutes of the 27th of April. Do we have there any there? No? Councillors, are there any matters arising from the floor from the ordinary council meeting of the 27th of April? No? Okay, we will go now to the planning committee meetings, planning committee meeting of the 11th of May. Are there any matters arising, councillors, for those minutes of the 11th of May? No, thank you. Very good, that brings us to item 9, our deputations. So I'd like to invite Rolf Strottermeyer, Ray Burns and David Blair up to the table. If you could just perhaps bring one chair with you. We've got...
Just leave your donation somewhere.
We've got...
Budget's a tight, can't pull the screws, look at that.
We've got Rolf Strottermeyer, Ray Burns and David Blair representing the Yungaburra Association Incorporated, Yungaburra Beautification and Landcare. Thanks very much. Over to you, Rolf.
Thank you, Mayor Marty. Just acknowledge yourself, other councillors, CEO. Thank you for this opportunity. I'd also like to acknowledge Gail Stitcher from the Tablelands Outdoor Recreation Association. She's also here to support this deputation. We just go to the next slide. Oh, okay, I've got it. Right. Okay, there's two particular issues that I wish to bring before your notice. The first one is that it's proposed that now is the time to reevaluate the gardens of Yungaburra. Secondly, that it's proposed that council save, and I've used that word deliberately, and you'll see as we go on with the deputation, the environs of Peterson Creek for future generations to enjoy. And we're specifically talking about the walking track. And what we'd like you to do in the future is save our walking track. If it's not, I think it'll be a really courageous decision, because there will be a lot of angst in the community. I'm going to speak to the first issue, and then Ray and David are going to speak to the second. In relation to the first issue, where we're asking that a plan be developed for Yungaburra for its gardens. This was raised at our Yungaburra Association meeting. The state of the gardens around town, specifically Cedar Street, and must bear in mind that since the closure of the Peterson Creek walking track to the south of Pender Road, the route really to the walking track is down Cedar Street. This is a photo outside the hotel that I took after this issue was raised, and the weeds are really higher than the plants that are in there. That greenery are weeds. This is in Cedar Street itself, and this is another garden outside the hotel, and the plant that's predominantly used, I think it's pronounced agave, is it? I understand that comes from the deserts of Mexico, and we just really question why we have plants from the deserts of Mexico or overseas in a tropical tableland town. I probably understand the reasons why. They're low cost, but they're not attracting birds, not attracting bees, more likely to attract spiders. This is going further up Cedar Street. There are issues as far as this is outside the post office, issues as far as the mail truck gaining access. The trees have been too tall. Until last week, the garden was completely unkempt, and again, a lot of the trees in there are not natives. These are some of the issues. The trees are too large. This is in Cedar Street. It's challenging for caravans and large vehicles to actually move down Cedar Street. Council doesn't appear, and this is just a general statement, doesn't appear to be able to keep up with the maintenance of the gardens. I understand we've had a lot of rain this year. We are not critical of the teams that are doing the maintenance work. They're doing a fantastic job. If you're not aware, there's quite a lot of volunteer hours spent looking after various gardens in town and tubs with the beautification committee, but it just is not happening for the community. Cedar Street is the main thoroughfare now to Pender Street, to the iconic Peterson Creek walking track. And we believe it's an issue that the gardens are primarily non-native. And I ask, this is a rhetorical question, is there a council policy on use of native plants as opposed to something from Mexico? What our community would like to see is that council funds a plan for the gardens of Yungaburra, a plan which identifies the most appropriate, ideally native trees for those gardens. That's the first issue. The second issue is that it's proposed that council save the environments of Peterson Creek for future generations to enjoy. Just before I go to Ray, this is from the council's website. It's a new development and is the latest map that is on there for the proposed development. The line in red is not exact. That's what I put in down the bottom. That's where the Peterson Creek walking track goes. The latest map actually has lots 8 and 9 encompassing the track, which if we lose that, as I said, we call it iconic. There are thousands of people that use that track, and we believe that council needs to save it in the future as this development application comes to you. I'll just hand over to Ray Byrne.
Thanks, Rob. I'll just distribute these maps of the walking track. They're not, I'll apologise for the size of the print on them. It's a little bit hard to see, but it's the best we've got at this stage. Just a little bit of background. Peterson's Creek walking track was commenced by volunteers of the Peterson Creek Land Care Group more than 25 years ago, and they have maintained and expanded that track up to the present day. They transformed it from a virtual wasteland of lantana and other weeds into one of the most popular natural attractions that we have around the tableland, and great credit to them, and it's enjoyed by tourists and locals as well. It is an iconic community amenity, and it's highly valued by the Yungaburra community, particularly businesses, because it does attract a lot of visitors to the area. It's probably one of the few places that you can really get close up to platypus and be virtually guaranteed of seeing those unique animals in their natural environment. Any threat to the future of this walking track will generate a pretty angry response in the Yungaburra community, because it's highly valued by them. That was evident recently when the landholder at the Gillies end of the track closed the track at that end, and a section of it down to Pender Street, not quite to Pender Street, but certainly a fairly lengthy section of it, because he had some concerns about biosecurity issues, ostensibly. Now, there's been quite a lot of discussion with him in an attempt to resolve that issue, so far without success, and that's an ongoing thing, and we hope that that'll be addressed at some stage and we'll eventually get a successful outcome. But now we have this another potential threat, which is affecting the track further down, more or less in the middle of the track, in the shape of a subdivision application adjacent to Pender Street, lots 1 to 3, and that has a boundary on Peterson Creek, which encompasses that section of the walking track that you can see there on the screen. Now, currently, the portion of that track that does lie within that area is there's been previous gentlemen's agreements, of course, with the previous owners, and you know, they've been very cooperative and tolerated the track and its development over a long period. However, with the the new subdivision application, this situation is going to change. Now, the current owners of the property, they do recognise the importance of the walking track. They've been very careful in their application to council to point out, and I'll quote, "They do not wish to close the Peterston Creek Walking Trail as it provides for a national tourism feature for Yungaburra, which helps to ensure Yungaburra retain its natural character." So they are quite well disposed towards it. But they are aware of the potential liability issues that could arise, such as injury to persons on that track. And they, in response to that, they proposed excising the area that the track lies in and proposed to council that there be an exchange of land in the unnamed road reserve, which, can we see it there, Rob? Is
Yeah,
that
it's to
the
the
green line?
To the north of the Green Line.
Yeah, to the north of the green line is the unnamed road reserve, and they had requested, there's about 2,500 square metres of area which encompasses the track. They had proposed to excise that and exchange it for a portion of that road reserve, and of course that would require a partial road closure. Council, in its response to that request, had pointed out that of course the road closure was a matter for assessment by Department of Natural Resources and did not come in as part of the assessment of this subdivision. So in fact it's a separate issue. So they then asked, council then asked the developers to come back with a proposal which either included the walking track in the new development or excised it and applied a tenure to it, either as road reserve or some other category. Following that, the applicant has now responded with a new plan which now includes, it goes right to the creek and does include the walking track, and it now, of course, we have a very real threat to the future of the walking track because the two blocks in the new development that the walking track is passes through are much smaller, and of course people buying those lots in the future are very unlikely, I'd say, to tolerate a walking track with strangers passing through their backyard every day. So we now have a very real threat to the future of the track, and this section is quite a critical section in the middle of the track. Obviously there's a need to get this resolved one way or other. The applicants have also indicated that it's their wish through formal discussions with council to obtain an understanding of council's position in relation to the walking track. They state that, and this is a quote, "This understanding will then indicate council's support for any future lodgement of the appropriate action." So what they're saying, I believe, is that they're willing to discuss with council some other alternatives here. Now, it seems to us that the applicants have left the door open for further negotiations on the future of the walking track and are expecting council to assist in finding an acceptable solution for all the concerned parties here. Now, we support their approach and believe there are other options for resolving this issue which have not yet been canvassed. There's one actually just up in my term on Eacham-shire, I recall there was a subdivision in Bunya Street, which is just up from where this is, where there was a subdivision of a lot, and one of the conditions applied to that subdivision was that an esplanade be created, which gave access to the creek bank. So I suggest there's an option here possibly for a similar action. And we, I guess, expect now that council will take every action possible to try and get some other alternative here that will solve this problem. I believe that, you know, this is a critical section, as I mentioned before, and we're certainly looking to you as councillors to help us secure the future of this valuable community asset. And thanks for giving us the opportunity to present it.
Thanks very much.
Dave?
Thank you. Thanks to the council for listening to this deputation. I'm the current president of the Yungaburra Landcare Group Incorporated. The track between the Gillies Highway Bridge at the Platypus viewing platform and the railway bridge, which is quite close to the dump, the Yungaburra dump, it's about 1.6 kilometres in length. Only two parts of that track are on private land, and the first part was closed last year. That's the part between the Gillies Highway and almost Pender Street. That's nearly 600 metres. That was the most heavily trafficked, most heavily visited section of the track, and during the tourist season saw a lot of people. Now that was closed around last August. The only remaining part of the track on private land, in fact, is the part that we're looking at here. However, closure of that section would make it very difficult for members of the public to access any other part of the track unless they come down the unformed road reserve at the back of this block or come through where the railway bridge is, which is not a popular section of the track where parking is difficult, etc. So closure of this part of the track would most certainly make it very difficult for visitors to access any other portion. So we would ask the council to consider options going forwards that might help to resolve this problem. And really, I think Ray has covered everything else, and I think I just thank you for listening to us. That's all.
Thanks very much.
Mr. Thomas, thank you very much.
Yeah, Councillor, is there any questions before our panel leaves? Any questions or clarifications for Councillor Bill?
Yes, through the Mayor, just Ray was talking about, Ralphie was talking about tree policies and that sort of stuff. Council is in the process of developing a policy that will help inform where, why, when and what and how, I suppose. So that's in the process. I'm not sure when it will be available, but it'll certainly be a document that'll provide better guidance than what we've got at the minute.
Thanks, Councillor Billy. Councillor Hodge.
Yeah, just in regards to the planning application, it's probably a good idea that the CEO organise a workshop, I think, before that application comes to council for consideration, so we know exactly what we can do and what we can't, get the options.
Councillor Cardew.
I'm just wondering if you could put the map back up, and I was just a little bit lost where you're trying to describe you were talking about
Yeah, might be useful if one of you just go up and point.
Yeah, you're most familiar.
So this is Pender Street here.
Catholic Church is
Catholic
the top of
Church
Pender
is
Street.
just about here. Mulgrave Road is here, running down towards the dump, and the creek is here. The Gillies Highway and the highway bridge are down here. The unnamed road reserve is here, running from Mulgrave Road near the Bushland Cottages down to Peterson Creek here.
David, you probably need to mention that that road reserve is now being used by the Seven Sisters bicycle trail.
So the council gave approval for the Seven Sisters bike trail to come down this unnamed road reserve, and it then cuts through around the back of the walking track further on. So I think that's probably.
I'm more interested in the when you're talking about land swap or the like with those private blocks there.
Okay, I believe that the application, there's blocks number 6 and 8, which I know it's hard to see those numbers from further back. There is at the moment a fence line running through about here which separates the walking track from that private land there. But nevertheless, this is still on private land right down towards the creek. And the land swap, I believe, the idea is that the section on the creek side of the fence be donated or given or swapped with whoever for a strip of the road reserve through here, which would allow access to here.
Can I,
That's my understanding, but I'm not sure if I actually have that right.
if I could just comment on that, we have, as a community, have no position on that at the moment. We're not advocating for land swap or anything. We're just asking the council save that portion of the track, however that is done.
Yeah, we believe there are other options other than the land swap.
And if I understand him, that road, that unnamed road is 30 metres wide, am I right in saying that?
Yep.
And as a land swap, the developer would like to have 10 metres of that 30 metre road, and for that he would give that area along as in return for it. However, it was arranged.
So just Councillor Cardew first. Councillor Cardew, does that answer your, are you clear
Yeah.
with the,
And what was the, and the track doesn't go through that private land anywhere else except along the bottom of the creek, is that right?
This is the only remaining section of the entire track
And
that is on private
The bit
land.
that's been closed off as of August last year, is that from,
That's from the opposite side of the creek here, where's Pender Street. Here's Pender Street, and Williams Lane runs across on the other side of the creek. The track crosses the creek at this point and runs along the Atherton side to the Gillies Highway. It's not on the Yungaburra side.
Is there any, what's on the Yungaburra side, is it private land all the way?
Yes,
down?
there's about 11 or 12 houses along there.
Fence lines go all the way down to.
So basically, a very large portion of your track is on private land.
The remaining at the moment.
Remaining, well, this is the only remaining bit that we have access to, but yes.
On there.
We should point out that the other, past this development, the track traverses a road reserve.
This way.
Yes.
There's another perhaps 800 metres of track, something like that, down to the railway bridge.
And that's on.
That's on road reserve.
It's on reserve.
That's not a private land.
Yeah,
Okay.
not private property.
So, yeah, again, there's a fair bit of track in private property with multiple owners.
But basically 2 owners at the moment. If the development goes through, it ends up with multiple, than 3.
all right, that's very good. Thanks, David. Thank you. Thanks very much, Rolf and Ray. Thanks. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, watch the back of the chair.
Okay, councillors, we'll move along to item 11.1. Thanks, Councillor Clifton. Can you just close that door, please, Angela? Item 11.1, TW Headley Proprietary Limited, negotiated decision notice, reconfiguration of a lot, 1 into 143 lots, negotiated infrastructure charges notice, lot 201 SE 284-133, Davies Road, Malanda, RAL 22/001. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Bilney's moving. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hayden, thank you. Councillor Bilney.
Yeah, through the chair. Look, this has sort of been negotiated over fair spans of time, and water to date has been the contentious issue. It's good to see that we've actually come down to a decision of some sorts. It's fair to say that the developer is able to commence now with the first 15 lots that trail off Lumolds Drive and use council's existing reticulated water system, or water supply, I should say. The water supply, I note in the report, they talk about the applicant providing a water supply master plan. So I'm interested to understand why we're asking for that to be done externally. I'm assuming it's to confirm council's methodology of their estimation of potential or future use, and to show transparency in this transaction. Is that fair to say, Bruce?
That's the master plan is really internal to the development. That's what we're requesting them to do, just to demonstrate how they're going to supply all the 140 lots that are in the development. We're looking after all the external design of the external reticulation system, etc. Yep. So yeah, it's purely related to the actual development.
Okay.
And sorry, just add, it's very common practice for multi lot subdivisions to have a master plan so that their engineers demonstrate that all lots can have adequate water supply in all conditions.
Yeah. Is it fair to say, Bruce, also that the methodology of 3.7 equivalent persons?
Equivalent population, equivalent
Yep.
persons, yes.
Will be sort of used in that same master plan for the applicant?
They need to design that in accordance with the FNQ Rock Development Manuals, and that's what the manual requests.
And that's what you've used in your calculations?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Hodge.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I will be, once everyone's finished talking, I'll be moving an amendment to the officer's recommendation. It's only one amendment.
Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Chris, I don't have a real problem with the report or the recommendations. It's good to sort of got something that we can put our teeth into now and give some clear direction to the developer. The only thing that I'd like you to expand on a little, if you could, or maybe this is a question for Dan, is that the recommendation suggests that as soon as lot 16 is created, the developer's up for total cost of the infrastructure charge for water, which is, well, we don't know what it is yet, but it's in excess of $1.3 million. So why would we not proportion that as the lots are released?
Through the chair, I'll let Councillor Hodge handle that one because I believe that's the subject of.
That's him.
So can we get that one, what you're going to talk about? Or
Yeah, well, I'll have to move the amendment first.
So yeah, well, we've already got a mover and a seconder here, but there may be other
Sorry, Mr Mayor, but as a technical matter, you can accept an amendment to an amendment, I think. The other one, I think it amounts to an amendment to the motion as opposed to being contrary to the motion per se.
Yeah. So does anyone else want to talk before we go back to Councillor Hodge? Councillor Hodge?
Okay, I'll get Jackie to put it up there. Basically, it is on page 22, 4C, where it says the cash contributions payable on the approval of the plan of subdivision that creates the 16th lot. I'm going to change that to the cash contributions payable by equal instalments on a per lot basis, with the timing triggers to be negotiated with the applicant. So that's the amendment. I need someone to second that before I talk.
Councillor Cardew seconding the amendment.
Let's go with it. I can tell you now, this is we all know this has been going on for yonks, and
So yeah, just a point of clarification. So this, my understanding is, and CEO, correct me if I'm wrong. So we've just moved this so Councillor Hodge can talk to it, but we haven't changed the original.
Not until such time as if this amendment succeeds, that then becomes the motion, and that's the matter being discussed, but
Yeah, it needs to be accepted by the mover and the seconder of the original.
no, not at all.
No, it doesn't.
It needs to be, I think, an amendment of this nature should be, Councillor Hodge absolutely able to explain it. Anyone opposed to it is able to speak against it. We're now just pretty much discussing a slightly different motion to what we were discussing originally. If at the end of the day, council doesn't, by majority doesn't support Councillor Hodge's suggested amendment, then it goes back to the original motion. If it is supported, then this becomes the motion. So what it is not appropriate to do is to move into any aspect of the application at this point beyond this matter.
Right. Councillor Hodge.
so as part of is this well, the first point is the original C. If we have to pay that on the 16th block, the $1.56296 million, I can tell you now, this application is dead in the water. And that's, I only say that once, because it will not go ahead. I am not here to debate how it was calculated. I'm not here to debate the legal advice that we got about the rezoning deed and their advice from their barristers. I'm not here. My role here is to make sure I get this across the line, to make sure it's fair and relevant as per planning rules, and to make sure I can get this to the people in Melinda. So technically, I think the current one, which I think the Dan Steppen case, I'm getting technically wrong here, but the motion is we're not going to approve. We're going to stay with the original infrastructure charge notice.
Correct. So through the chair, if we fail to negotiate an infrastructure agreement, then it reverts. So the infrastructure agreement overrides the infrastructure charges notice.
Okay. So that's like $13,500. If we divide the 1.5 million by 140 blocks, we get 11,100 plus the negotiated advice from the deed. That's 2315. It's a similar amount. So the calculations is a similar amount. So what this does, in my view, is makes it relevant and reasonable that instead of making them pay 1.5 million, I'm not disputing the calculation, okay? But as far as I'm concerned, they got to pay for it. I'm not going to be in that part of the negotiation. They got to pay that. I mean, they can negotiate with our officers, but it is between 1.3 million and 1.5. I'm going to 1.5 million at the moment. That's the capped amount, so I'll just talk to that. To make them pay that whole contribution at the 16th block, I think is probably unfair, unreasonable, and what it basically does is destroys the application. So I've changed that. I've spoken to our officers to come up with what I think is fair and reasonable, and what they think they can answer for themselves. This way it does, it just gives, it's paid by equal instalments. They can negotiate the triggers for it, and then it can be negotiated. And this is just more a fair and relevant way to do it. So that's all I need to say.
Thank you, Councillor Hodge. Could I just ask Dan if you're able to
come to you next.
So if you just ask Dan, are you able to answer the risks that sit with council then in relation to timing of payments, or how does that work in terms of the development?
So through the chair, I think what Councillor Hodge has proposed is reasonable insofar as it might allow us to sort of front-end load the repayment of council's outlay for those water supply works. So originally, when the developer proposed to pay $500,000, it was $10,000 over the first 50 lots. So I'm not saying 50 lots is the magic number, but it might not be 140 lots either.
Thank you.
If I could through the mayor, CEO, I guess the risk to council there is if council goes and invests the money in the infrastructure and the development doesn't proceed, that's the risk to council. That's in, yeah, I won't put an opinion on the table on that one, but that's the risk to council.
Thank you.
We'll go to councillor Hayden.
So this is the first time I've seen the amendment, so I was sort of quite looking at the questions that were asked, because I would like to know when we would trigger, after 15 lots, I would assume we have to do something with the water system. Is that what we're saying? So if they only sell 10 blocks and they pay 10 in 10 years time, what's it worth to put the water on? So how many blocks does he have to sell before he pays the council? So ratepayers who aren't developers are picking up the costs of this infrastructure and the costs and the charges. So how many blocks? I'd like to see how many blocks should be sold before we do the timing, the trigger of for the payments. I mean, I haven't seen this amendment till now, so I sort of would like to know some more detail about it.
So Bruce or Dan, can you comment on
You sort of
councillor
answered,
Hayden?
so.
How's councillor Hayden's question there?
Um,
Which was around if
Well-
if they only develop
Another 20 lots, there's still only another 20
10 or
lots.
15
How long
lots
do we wait?
after
How
the
long do we
original.
wait?
Yeah, so that is the risk to council, that there'll be, we intend to build the connection between the Malander and the Davies Road systems to cater for the 140 lots, plus all the other known developments out in that area. And so if the development doesn't proceed beyond the 15 lots for whatever reason, then council will have forked that money out and put the capacity in the system to supply those. I guess, as I said, I can't put an opinion on the table as to whether they will or the developer will or won't proceed. My guess is if he's purchased and wants to do 140 lots, he'll make best endeavours to try and do the 140 lots to recover his money for the development. But that's probably the and so the difference is, I guess, the council to consider, as Councillor Hodge has said, the risk if you make the developer pay the whole lot up front is that he may not be able to afford to. The other side is council has the risk of carrying that cost, if that helps.
Thank you. Councillor Bill.
Through the chair, again, I'll say, I said like a meeting or so ago, I'm fully supportive of this development, but it's got to be fair and equitable to ratepayers. We are providing a concession on the infrastructure charges through the novated deed. That's a savings of around about $10,000 per block, which we've made a decision upon, or being asked to make a decision upon. The second part of this is, this development will trigger a water supply upgrade. Ratepayers have to fund that, and it's circa $7.5–8 million. If the developer or the applicant is only paying on a per lot basis, 10,700, I think Councillor Hodge quoted, or thereabouts. If it takes 5 or 6 or 8 years time to sell those lots, that value of that money has been diluted substantially. So it's not worth 10,700 in buying power anymore. So, I think we really need to consider what is actually fair and equitable, and also what has been imposed on other developers in the area that are also developing on the tablelands. What sort of concessions are they being given?
Thanks, Councillor Bill.
One councillor, I suppose Dan can answer Councillor Bilney's question. What was the contributions for the white development?
It was in accordance, sorry through the chair, it was in accordance with the rezoning agreement, albeit, just in clarification to something that Councillor Billey said, in repaying the water supply costs on a per lot basis, those charges would be indexed in accordance with the council cost index. So.
Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Because I don't support the recommendation as it stands where they pay the total amount on the 16th block. I think that's unreasonable and unfair, and it will put the subdivision, which is very much needed for the Melinda community, at high risk. No doubt that the developers will likely walk away. I think, to be fair, and what we do across a lot of our planning applications, subdivision applications, is it does play on when the survey plans are sealed, they pay their contribution. I'm aware that there is a risk, as Bruce has said, that if we're going to have to find the $7 or $8 million to put that water main in and upgrade that water supply system at some stage, probably sooner rather than later in the future, because my understanding is that the existing supply at Davies Creek is at risk, highly at risk, Bruce.
Reaching end of life.
Yep, it's reached its end of life, so we're up for it anyway. So in order not to lose this subdivision for the Melinda community, I'm going to support the amended motion put up by Councillor Hodge, because I think it's fair and reasonable.
Thanks, Councillor Cardew. Councillor Willis.
Yeah, thanks, through the chair. We made a decision some time ago that we were going to accept risk to a point, as long as we were making an informed decision with it. Just following on from what the Deputy Mayor just said, it's an area that the water supply has to be upgraded. I totally accept what Councillor Bilney has also indicated. The developer, in my view, has certainly shown his ongoing interest with doing this, and if we look at the ongoing economic benefits that the community will derive from having an extra 144 potential families in our area, I think at this point anyway, unless I can be swayed, it's a risk that I'm prepared to accept.
Thanks, Councillor Wills.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll just go to my reply, and exactly what Councillor Wilson said here. There is a risk, but the benefits to the Melinda community, 140 new families, current families, it's huge. And for us to, and I think, I've said all along, I think 1.5 million up front is unfair, and we have to make sure our planning rules are relevant and fair. So in this case, it's up to you, councillors. If you want to vote it down, you do that, but you go out and explain to the Melinda community why this failed, and that's up to you.
Councillor Bilney, then I'll.
Yeah, sorry, one more chance. As a compromise, is there an opportunity to stage the payments over a couple of years or something like that? Is that an opportunity?
That's exactly what Councillor Hodge is suggesting. So concentrating the repayment in the earlier stages of the development. It's a middle ground, I guess, is what we're suggesting. But as to what the precise lot number is, like what you're going to spread that load over, that's something for us. There'll be a sweet spot there somewhere for us to negotiate with the developer.
We would seek to lower our risk profile to the extent that we can without, we're clearly not going to eliminate it, but we would seek to lower the risk profile.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, just to add, it's fair to say that the developers, consultant and the council staff aren't in full agreement on the methodology that we've used. And so the intent here was to put something forward to allow the development to proceed while we worked out and continue to negotiate that fine detail in an infrastructure agreement. So it may well be, it turns out to be a per lot or X per year or whatever we end up landing on down the track.
And just to clarify, that cap will be indexed, or the individual blocks will be indexed.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, we'll charge them.
Whatever transpires.
Yeah.
So again, just for clarification, so my understanding is clear. What Councillor Hodges is asking, that upon the sale of a lot, an amount of what is it, councillor Hodge, what was the amount that you've come up with?
13,510 roughly at the moment. It's about the same, 13,000.
For each sale, so then we are very dependent on sales going through quickly.
But they're indexed.
Yeah, indexed to meet the cost of the dollar value down the track, I accept that, that's high. We're still being asked to spend the money today though. That's the difference.
That's the risk.
Councillors, it's an interesting discussion. The approval with the existing water is it 15 lots can be developed with under the existing water supply system, and then once we go beyond that, was it 15 or 16 lots?
Mr. Mayor, yes, so we've looked at the existing demands on the network out there and agreed that the first 15 lots could be connected. There's an easy connection point there on Fig Tree Close, is it? That they can hook in. Anything beyond that, we would need to do a lot more work to look at the demands. In fact, there's a clause in the report today that requires the developer to demonstrate that they can hook in additional lots without any impact on the existing customers. So that bit of work needs to happen before we can say yes to any more lots. So yes, the short answer, yes, we've said you can connect the first stage.
Yeah, look, councillors, I think this is a really tricky one. It's a 30-year-old approval. The environment's changed a lot in 30 years. And there's lots of moving parts. The water's just one of the moving parts. So, you know, basically the developer can proceed with 15 lots before there is a request for this payment. Once they go beyond 16 lots, council is then responsible for that water upgrade. So we're up for our water upgrade at that moment. Whether they only sell another 10 lots or another 20 lots beyond the 15, we've got to do it at that moment. So, you know, I know there's been discussions between the developer and their representatives and council officers, and, you know, I think council officers have done their best to do everything they can to make this a fair and reasonable approval. So yeah, look, I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation. Councillor Hodge, did you want to talk again?
Yeah, well, just finally, just before you vote, he can do the 15. He doesn't have to do anything. You can just sell the farm back on. So it just goes. So I think you just really have to put yourself in the position, if you were doing it, would you come up with $1.5 million? And I think it's unfair. And I think what we've said here and what I've changed my original resolution amendment with our officers to make it fair and reasonable. And if you want to vote it down, well, that's your call. But this is fair and reasonable. As we've said before, the benefits to the community, to the land community are huge. So that's it, we put it to the vote.
Councillors, those in favour of, we're voting on that one on the screen there.
Just the amendment.
We're voting on the amendment. So it's the one in blue there on the screen. So those in favour of Councillor Hodge's amendment. Okay, so we've got a tie. So CEO, what's the process?
We cast your casting vote.
Okay. It's my view that my view that I'll maintain my position. I won't support the amendment. And now we go to the original officer's recommendation. So we'll go to the original officer's recommendation, which was moved by Councillor Bilney, seconded by Councillor Hayden. Those in favour? So that's 3 for and 3 against, and I'll vote again to support the officer's recommendation. Okay, we'll go on to item 11.2. Yes, Councillor Kay.
No, did it my way.
Yes, I'll stick that up the top. Yeah, I just did it there so I didn't have to scroll for, because it's such a big scroll, I just put it there so it's on one screen.
We're just waiting on Councillor Clifton.
Amanda went getting.
Oh, she did? Okay, Councillor, we'll go to item 11.2, Priors Creek Development Preliminary Design. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? In fact, I'll move that myself. We have a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Will. Yeah, look, I'll just reserve my right to talk last on this one. So we'll go around the table. Who'd like to go first? Councillor Wilts?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, through the chair. Price Creek development has been on the table for quite some years, and we're at a point now where, in my opinion, we can really start to move forward. We have quite a few logistical matters that we have to attend to, but it's extremely exciting for the development of our Shire. We're trying to encourage new families, new subdivisions, new workforce. We have other developments in the mix in the area as well. The other day we had the privilege of doing the economic analysis of what this project is likely to bring to the area, and it was fairly extensive. And I think, Angelo, if I'm correct, it was $1.33 returned for every dollar spent, returned to the community, not back to us, but to the community as a benefit. And this is only the preliminary design that we're speaking of here today. So it's not for the full expenditure or anything like that. There's going to be quite some budgetary matters that we have to examine very closely as we move forward with this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wills. Who'd like to go next? Councillor Hodge.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I'm happy to support this. This is the design phase of it all. At least we have the plan in place. Now, whether it takes 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, fine, you know, and where we get the funds from to make it happen. But at least if we can bed in the design, and I think it's ready to go. Then we just got to try and find the funds to make it happen.
Thanks, Councillor Hodge. Councillors? Councillor Cardew?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. But I just want to echo those comments of fellow councillors over there. This is just a preliminary design stage. I think it's a worthwhile project, but we do have to look at how we're going to fund it. Those decisions are going to come down the track. But in the first instance, we have to have a design in place so that we can move forward. There's some certainty in the design that it can move forward, and like I said previous, if it takes 2, 5, 10 years to get, then, you know, through funding or what have you, then so be it. But at least we've got first step cemented. So, you know, the next council and maybe the council after that, that's something to work with. Yeah, I'll support this recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Cardew. Councillor Clifton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I endorse Prize Creek development completely. I have the same reservations that Councillor Cardew has about how it will be funded. I've made the point before that we need to make sure that there are considerable amounts of private or commercial funds in it, and I know that we've taken a deputation to the state government, and I would like to see some people from the state government. It is a major state development type activity. I do have, and it's merely the lateral thinking of my mind, I look at clause 2 in the recommendation on page 94, in the actual recommendation itself. Delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to finalise all matters associated with this report. I think it's true to say that I trust our processes and I trust the CDO, but I would be keen to make sure that the council were always involved in decisions were made. And I don't mean that as a comment against anybody, but if the CEO rightfully exercises the delegation, I don't want to interfere with that, but it would be good to know the stages of development as we're going through it. We, for example, we don't regularly see the steering committee reports. They've just recently been started to be circulated. That's useful. I'd like to see any of the other small decisions associated with it that are pertinent to our operations and pertinent to our delegation. I'd like to see them just flow through to us as a matter of course. It's not a criticism at all. It's a comment of keeping us involved.
Thanks, Councillor Clifton. Councillor Hayden? Councillor Miller?
Nothing further to add.
No. Thanks very much, everyone. Yeah, look, this is a really exciting stage that we've reached with the Prize Creek development. We've assembled a very professional team of specialists to get us to this point. It's a very significant project. I hear the comments of Councillor Clifton and Councillor Cardew and about the hurdles along the way, and of course funding is a big hurdle, but we know that this project can't be built without the support of the state and I would think the federal government. We've started that advocacy some months back. We've been engaging with the state government, with various state members and ministers about the significance of this project, about the importance that Atherton as the commercial hub of the Tablelands moves into the 21st century in terms of its CBD and the amenity it really should provide to the community, for all members of the community, for the elderly, for families, for kids. We need to build that infrastructure that people in the 21st century expect when they come to a new area. These are the things they expect, and it will be a great thing, and we'll keep working as hard as we can and get in the face of our state and federal members to make sure that we get the financial support that we need to get it built. It'll be a transformational project for Atherton and also for the Tablelands in the broader context. Councillors, we've got a mover and a seconder of the motion. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 11.3, Agricultural Advisory Committee. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Clifton. Councillor Wilts seconding. Councillor Clifton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The minutes are at item page 132 onwards. We're gradually working our way through the requests and various interests of the members of the Agricultural Advisory Committee. We've now had 3 meetings. The next meeting will be held on the 14th of July, at which time, I think I've mentioned in previous meetings, we have been successful in having the Valuer General come to that meeting and use that meeting as their formal annual market review, so that where the growers and agriculturists will be able to comment on the sales that have occurred in the year. An important matter that came out of the last agricultural meeting is recorded as agenda item number 2. There was considerable angst around the table about the Navua sedge infestation that is growing like wildfire everywhere. And so I will be asking in the not too distant future for how we might assess whether we can make it improved or confirm the processes that are in place about it now. There are a number of members of the committee who have not been able to give their time to the committee and have not, in fact, turned up. I'll be writing to them in the next week and saying, well, can you see yourself clear to, with the pressure of work that you're suffering, or shall we rejig the membership a little bit? I think it's time to do that. But that'll come out in the due course of time. So I commend the minutes to you, and I think it's going along quite successfully. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Clifton. Councillors, those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried. Thank you. 11.4, TRC business continuity. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Billney and Councillor Wilts. Councillor Billney.
Through the chair. No, look, I think Sarah, our senior advisor of emergency management, has done a wonderful job to keep us on track for business as usual in the event of a disaster, and I think the report speaks for itself.
Thanks, Councillor Billney. Councillors? Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried. We'll go on to infrastructure and planning services. Item 12.1. TRC 2022-17 Hitch-Canole Road alternate solution. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hodge. Seconder, Councillor Bilney. Councillor Hodge.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Basically, it has to be done, and even though there's more funding needs to be thrown at it, that's what it is. And I'm not an engineer, so I think it's best that I hand over to the engineers to just explain exactly what it is.
Thanks very much, David and Jody. Thank you.
Right, through the chair, so the original proposal was for soil nails, which are basically really long screws that get screwed into the soil. The successful tender came back with an alternative of a proposal which used piles. So we had thought about piles originally, but discounted it because the original pile length was a short one. The contractor came back with a lot longer pile length and bigger pile diameter, which has the same effect as the soil nails, except rather than going vertically or close to it, it's going straight down. So, which means that that contractor has a lot more control over the whole construction process. Meant they were able to guarantee, aside from the weather, the completion date before the end of June, which is the one of the funding constraints. Yeah, so that's why we've gone this way. It's a lot. The pile solution is more suited to that contractor. That's more their core business is these larger piles. So yeah.
Very good, Dave. Councillor Bilney, then we'll go to the General Manager.
Through the chair, look, I've been involved with the undermining of Hitch-Canole Road and working with officers probably for over the last 3 years, and there's been various methods to discuss land swaps, etc. We come down to what do they call it, gravity blocks, as opposed to the soil nails. I think it's a really good option. I'm really glad that officers have been able to find a solution. The original budget for this was 425,000. This revised solution still sits well within that original approved budget. It's a little bit more expensive than the original soil nails, but the mitigating facts are the time frames, preservation of grant funding, etc. And utilising local resources, which Kev, you'll be very happy with as well. So I think it's a great outcome. Well done.
Very good, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks, Councillor Bilney, because you actually addressed what I wanted to clarify is that at the meeting at which the tender award was provided, the budget was proposed to be revised, and this solution still fits within that revised budget, so there's no additional budget required on top of what was already approved.
Yep.
Thanks.
Very good. Last call, councillors. Okay, those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried. Thank you. Item 12.2. TRC 2023-02 TRC Disaster Recovery Funding Arrangements, DRFA, Program Management. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hodge and Councillor Wilkes. Councillor Hodge.
I'm happy to move the motion. As per the as per the director's recommendation up there. Naturally enough, we haven't been able to put an actual costing on it yet because we don't know what the costing is going to be. So that's basically how the tender is working. It's been on an hour basis and not an actual an amount at this point in time. So that's just the way it's got to be done. You can't do it any other way. You don't know what your costs are going to be. So I'm happy to support it.
Thanks very much. Councillor Wills, no? No. Councillor Budgie?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm going to ask the General Manager to give us an explanation on what we're going to gain or what benefits it is to council in having a contractor do this work for us for a price of nearly $250,000. It's a hell of a lot of money, and I'm uncomfortable with putting my hand up supporting this if I don't have a full understanding of what we're going to receive for that amount of money.
Yep, thank you for the question, Councillor, through the Chair. So first of all, we need to include in our recommendation an amount including GST. Obviously, council is not subject to paying for GST, so the actual cost to our budget in the end is going to be close to $200,000. But this is also just an estimate based on an estimate of the hours that the consultant is expected to be dedicating to this project. In reality, depending on the actual damage that we've sustained during the recent wet weather events, the time and effort required to analyse that, put the submissions to the funding body, the negotiations with the funding body, and the effort that is required to get an approval for a scope of works, then the effort required to put the tenders together and put it on the market and manage the contractors, and also while doing all that stuff, providing the required reports to the funding body ongoing. We don't know how much that's going to be because we don't actually know the scope of the damage and what is going to be approved by the funding body in the end. So this is an estimate. It might not cost us $200,000. It might cost us more than that, but we won't know until we actually understand the scope of works that is going to be approved and the time required to actually deliver the works. Why are we not doing this in-house? First of all, it is a specialised process to work through the disaster relief funding arrangement. So there are consultants that are specialised and have significant experience in running those processes, specifically not necessarily tendering and contract management, but making sure that the process follows the DRFA requirements in accordance with what the funding body requires. We don't have that specific experience in-house. We also don't have the capacity to deliver this in-house. If you look at the potential cost of $200,000, which is potentially going to be spread over 2 years, that would be one or more than one resource dedicated to this project internally. We don't have that capacity. That would mean if I would dedicate, for example, Jodie to that, she wouldn't be delivering any other projects for council. So, and we'd have to outsource those. There's also further complications that not all costs that are for works that are delivered within council are actually recoverable through a funding through this funding arrangement. However, all external costs are recoverable. Plus, except for a threshold value per event, which is about $180,000, we get all costs, including these costs, refunded from the state and the federal government through the funding arrangement. I hope that clarifies it.
Thanks, Mark. We'll go Councillor Billney, then Councillor.
Just through the chair, and I was just rereading page 228 of that report. It actually states in the financial and resource implications, this report recommends the engagement of DRFA Program Manager for $213,000, excluding GST, all DRFA associated expenditure, except for the applicable trigger point value, which I think is you're saying is 180, is reimbursed by the QRA once approved. So I think that's a significant point that we need to understand as well.
Very good. Councillor Clifton.
Just, if I may, just to general manager infrastructure, when you, in general terms, general expectation terms, a consultancy fee like this would normally be within a few percentages. You would expect it to be 10%, 15%, 20% of a project.
Through the chair, thanks for that question. I actually think that the cost for this project, the project management, the contract management costs for this project are going to be less than what would be normally applicable to a project where you have to do full design and those processes as well. It's not unrealistic to expect that we've sustained around about, well, at least 5 million, but probably more around the $10 million worth of damage. So if you would normally apply 10 or 12% for design, project management, and contract management, you'd be in the range of $1 million of fees, and we're not expecting anything to be anywhere near that. So it's going to be more in the range of 3 to 5% at most. I would suggest for this type of work.
Okay, no, thanks for that clarification. It adds a perspective.
Councillor Kaji.
Yeah, thanks. One of the things I just picked up on, Mark, was you said that this figure here of 234,000 could increase.
Yep.
If this was a tender process and they've tendered this amount for that project, why would it increase? Can you give us some explanation?
So in the tender, in the request for tender, we basically nominated roles, and we specified an amount of estimated hours, and we basically asked the tenderers to just submit their hourly rates to those hours. So we've made an estimation as to what we believe the different roles within that project would, the time that they would spend on it, based on our assumptions as to how much activity would be required, and they've just provided their hourly rates. So we'll be monitoring the efforts that they spend on this throughout the project. But if, for example, there's more damage than what we believe there would be, or the negotiations and reporting requirements with the funding body require more effort, or the contractual arrangements with the contractors that eventually are delivering the works require more effort, there is a potential that the actual hours required to be spent in this project increase, or they might decrease. So if the hours are less, then we won't pay this amount of money, we'll pay less. If the hours increase, then we'll have to carry the contract, and we would be coming back to council when that happens.
Thanks, Mark. Councillors, final call on this one. Okay, those in favour of the officer's recommendation?
That was
Carried. Thank you. Yeah, that was everyone. Yeah. All right, we'll go to item 12.3. We might do this one and the next one, and then we'll take a morning tea break. So 12.3, TRC 2022-05, supply of cleaning services, public amenities extension. Can we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Wilts, Councillor Filney. Councillor Wilts.
No, I'd just throw it over to our officer, please, for just a brief précis of how we're here.
Thanks, Shane. If it's okay, just give us a run through. Thank you.
Yep, through the chair. So this is the extension of the public amenities cleaning contract. The contract itself has up to 12-month extension on it at council's sole discretion. So this recommendation is to extend their contract. Within that, it's not recommended for the full 12 months, so we can align the public amenities and corporate facilities contracts and then run them as one tender.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, those in favour of the officer's recommendation? So yeah, no, that's yeah, everyone. Thank you. Carried. 12.4, P TRC 2022-05 dry hire of plant and equipment waste sites. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hodge, seconded. Councillor Cardew. Councillor Hodge.
No, it's fine, thanks. It's fairly straightforward. It's a dry hire, basically they provide the equipment and our staff actually operate it. That's how it works. That's correct. So I'm happy.
Very good, thank you. Councillors? Is there anything you wanted to talk to Bruce in particular on this?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No, okay. All right, those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. Okay, councillors, we might take a 10-minute break in the morning tea. We can come back at about 25 to. Thank you. Closure. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Cardew. Seconder. Councillor Wilts. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I do support the officer's recommendation to permanently close the transfer station at Mount Garner. And I say that reluctantly because it's a community that's on the fringe of the boundary, and they miss out on a lot. They're a long way away from the main service. But the reality of it all is that we do need to cut back on the services that we deliver, and that's been identified in the recent services report. And we've got to start making some hard decisions. This is probably one of the first that we're going to have to make. Looking at the utilisation of that facility, very low compared to the cost that it costs council to run it, to maintain it. The additional kilometres that they have to travel to get to the transfer station in its presence is only 8 kilometres, 11 kilometres, or 8 kilometres.
Oh, sorry.
So
I think it's 11.
11.6 kilometres. So I know that where you've got towns like Colga, Walkerman, Tinaroo, Kirai, have to travel more than that to get to the Atherton facility. Then you've got places like Perman, Tarzali, etc. have to travel more than that again to get to the Ballina facility. You've got Lakeside, Tinaroo Park, Barine area, have to travel more than that again to get to the Yungaburra facility. So they're not on their lonesome as far as having to travel a little bit further to get to the transfer station. And in my own circumstances, I have to travel more than that to get to the transfer station. So while it's not good, I think it's necessary. So I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Hayden.
Okay, the closure of the Mount Garnet Waste Transfer Station dilutes the community's ability to function as a town. No consultation to date has been done with the community. The illegal dumping that is occurring is a threat to the biosecurity management of local properties and has environmental impact on the whole town. When it comes to illegal dumping, council is powerless in prosecuting any offender. Closure of the transfer station has done little for the morale of the community. Rubbish along the highway has increased and not a good look for the tourists who arrive and leave via the west. The number of dwellings serviced does not take into consideration the outliers that use the waste transfer station instead of burying rubbish on their property. Numbers from other towns with dwelling services have pick up along the highway. Mount Garner's service stops at the truck stop and does not pick up along the highway en route to Mount Garnet, with the exception of Inner Hot Springs, Battle Creek and Tabo Village. I propose the council look at option 2 for the Mount Garnet Waste Transfer Station, and the option for opening may be changed. Money also could come out of the gravel resheet program, which has been underspent again this year.
Thanks, Councillor Hayden. Councillors? Councillor Christian?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I support Councillor Hayden's request to go down option 2. Mount Garnet, you think of it as being little old Mount Garnet, but it's a growing community. I think if we looked at our population statistics, we'll find it's growing. We've got agriculture, pioneering agriculture going on in that district in the form of cotton. We've got new mines opening or being re-examined. We've got the wind farm at Chilumban going in. I can't imagine there'll be anything. I imagine that there will be more rubbish generated for the community than there is currently at the moment. So I think it's a backward step. I support the idea of repairing the infrastructure. It's only $107,000. There are ongoing costs, of course. But $107,000 is an insignificant amount compared to some of the other projects that we've had to spend additional funds on. So I won't be supporting the closure of the permanent closure of the Mount Garnet Waste Transfer Station. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Clifton. Councillors? Councillor Hodge?
Originally, I was going to support it, the permanent closure. But I'm going with Councillor Kaji as well to go for option 2. I think that's a fair thing to do for the people of Mount Garnet. So I would like to see option 2. Even though I've settled down a bit now since Councillor Hayden voted against my thing, but I won't be doing it against hers. So anyway, I'll support that.
Sorry, just clarification, councillors. Option 2, are we referring to?
Page 241, Mr Mayor.
241?
Repair the infrastructure and reopen the waste transfer station.
I see, yeah, got it. Yeah.
I think at the moment it's option 1, that Councillor Kaji.
The motion before we close it, so yes, that motion would need to be defeated, yes, in order for the other option to be considered. Yes.
Councillors, Councillor Wills?
Yeah, this is a difficult one. As Councillor Kaji said, look, there's a lot of other communities that do have to travel further than this. The issue with waste being disposed of along the highways and in creeks and whatever, we're going to see more of that as people continue along their lack of respect direction that they're taking, and of course, as we've seen in neighbouring divisions where if higher costs are imposed to dispose of waste products, we're going to get a lot more deposited along the roadside. The concern to me of keeping it open is, if we look objectively at it, to either repair or replace is, yeah, maybe not substantial money, but it's still money. But when we look at a paragraph here, and I'll just quote it, from an operational budget perspective, savings in labour, contractors, plant hire, depreciation and other costs, approximately 70,000 per annum on an ongoing basis. Over the life of the transfer station, estimated savings to TRC would be approximately 2.45 million, which makes it substantial for the sake of driving a few more kilometres. So, yeah, a very difficult one, but at some point in time, we are going to have to, as a group of people, be responsible to the budget of our ratepayers.
Thanks, Councillor Wills. Councillors, Councillor Billy, did you have anything to say on this one?
No, not.
No. Final call. So we've got a mover and a seconder of the officer's recommendation. Those in favour? It's carried. Would you like that recorded, Councillor Hayden?
Yes, please.
If you can record that one, please, Jackie. Those, Councillor Wilkes, Hodge, Cardew and Marty.
Oh, did you? Oh, sorry. So it's only two.
Three. Dave and Annette have voted.
Oh, okay, Dave did. Sorry, I thought it was.
Change my mind.
Okay.
All right. Okay, the next one is item 12.6, update disposal of community facilities. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Do we have a mover? Councillor Bilney's moving. Do we have a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Hayden seconding. Councillor Bilney.
I don't have a lot to say. I've been involved with precinct planning previously under the reimagining with Malanda, so I understand the reasoning behind that sort of planning, and I think it actually fleshes out some interesting information from a community point of view as far as needs and uses and even the financial side of some organisations as far as ability to pay. So I think the precinct planning does have a benefit, and I support the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Bilney. Councillor Clifton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think I forwarded a potentially alternative motion. Can we possibly bring that up? It's speaking about the report. It points out that we asked for a list of assets in March 2022. Here we are in May 2023, and the recommendation is that none of them can be disposed of easily. We should return to a previous policy, the reimagining policy, which councillors will recall left us in the Malanda situation with the potential budget to go ahead for a multi-function facility in Malanda, which is bogged down because there can't be a swap because the Patrick English Pavilion can't be knocked down. So it is an impasse. And I regard that policy, it may well have been useful, but it didn't lead to a great significant, that when it came to the final hurdle, it was too hard to get over. So I think that this, I'm not talking to my motion, Mr. Mayor.
Talking against the other motion?
I'm talking against the other motion. My motion doesn't speak about reimagining facilities at all, Mr. Mayor. I'm talking about reimagining facilities as a failed process, as I see it. Are we clear on that, Anna?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Can I continue? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So we've got a report here which, apart from the issue of reimagining facilities, which I feel I've put a review across, since this report was published, it contains, not that I can see anyway, anything about depreciation or insurance, and we've received, subsequent to this, to the publishing of this report in our minutes, I've received a document anyway, saying that the depreciation and the insurances for those properties, they come to more than $449,000 a year, which is not included in this document here, apart from whatever maintenance cost might exist. So I regard this document as an incomplete document, and I'm not prepared to support it And that's why I put forward an alternative motion, Mr. Mayor. Now, you tell me when I can speak to it.
Well, this motion needs to be defeated. This is the officer's recommendation being moved and seconded. So that motion would need to be defeated, councillor, in order for your motion to then be advanced.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a officer's recommendation that's moved and seconded. Councillor Clifton has flagged that he has, and I'll.
Mr. Mayor, could I just suggest that this is not a matter that is extremely urgent. The council requested the update. We provided that. Happy for the matter to be workshop with councillors over the next month and return to the June meeting if that's a better way forward. The council feels more able to discuss all of the individual aspects of it. But not saying don't consider it, Mr. Mayor, saying that it wouldn't concern us greatly if it was workshopped.
Yep, thanks. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, Lou. Look, I must admit, I'm extremely disappointed with this report. I'm extremely disappointed that we haven't advanced any further than what we are. This has been going for quite some time. I certainly won't be supporting the recommendation as it stands because to me it's just kicking the can down the road. As stated previously on many occasions, we've had service level reviews. We know we have to dispose of some of our assets. It's costing us a bundle. You've got to start making some hard decisions. And for me, I'm sick of kicking the can down the road. So I won't be supporting it, and I'll be interested to talk to the alternate motion if it gets up. But as it stands, I'm not supporting this at all.
Councillor Billen.
Yeah, through the chair, I just want to clarify a couple of issues and comments that were made. Patrick English Pavilion hasn't progressed because of budget constraints. We actually put it into outer years, so we're in control of that destiny. We are doing a potential scope of work, so that was the first thing. Officers have presented some opportunities for us to get rid of assets. We've chosen not to. Yungaburra Hall is one example of that. So, you know, it's very difficult when each individual asset comes to us for consideration. You know, community get in our ear and we've got to consider all these things. Yeah, I just don't think it's really fair to say that we haven't gone anywhere. We've got rid of some low-hanging fruit. The Pony Club in Millamilla was an example where it wasn't being utilised, and we dealt with it. I think precinct planning probably provides a better holistic understanding of each little community and what those assets are within. So I'm happy to defer it and go to a workshop if need be. The other point is the depreciation and insurance information that come out by email. That was at my request because I noted in the report it said operational costs, and I wanted to confirm that they were depreciation and insurance, and they have been confirmed. So I don't think anything was omitted. It may not have been spelt out exactly what it is, but we should know what operational costs are, and we should know what maintenance costs are, in my view.
Thanks, Councillor Billy. Councillor Wilkes.
Yeah, just I've been speaking to my colleague sitting next to me here and taking up on the offer of the CEO. I'd like to see a workshop. This is a matter that's extremely relevant to where we want to go and what we're doing. So, if possible, I would like to see that facilitated.
Councillors, final call on the motion that's on the screen. Moved Councillor Billy, seconded Councillor Hayden. Those in favour of that motion? Okay, that's defeated. Councillor Clifton had an alternative motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to withdraw that from the table and take up the CEO's offer of a workshop.
Very good.
I'd like it in the quite near future if possible.
Okay. Do we need a resolution for that, or?
No, Mr. Mayor. The motion's been lost, so it's up to us to advance the matter.
Yeah.
In a way that does suit the majority of council.
Yeah.
We'll organise the workshop. And once we've completed our budget workshops.
Very good. Very good, thank you. So we'll go on to item 13.1, under Community and Corporate Services, Financial Report, April 2023. Is there anything here?
Yep.
Do we have a mover for 13.1? Councillor Hodge is moving. A seconder. Councillors, Councillor Cardew. Councillor Hodge.
Thanks, Mr. Member. Everything seems to be tracking to budget, which is good. There is a few things that in the sundry debtors, we still got that $380,000 that's been outstanding. Are we working on that?
Absolutely. There'll be a report coming next month to address the those.
Okay, that's good. I'll leave that. I think Councillor Hayden did email something in regards to the variations to the contract, so I'll let her ask that question. Other than that, that's it for me.
Councillors, any questions for the Manager of Finance? Okay, we have a mover and seconder. Those in favour? Carried, thank you. Item 13.2, second revised budget. Do we have a mover, please? Councillor Hodge. And a seconder. Councillor Bilney. Councillor Hodge.
No, it's okay. I don't need to ask any questions. I think it was only $120,000, I think, was the variance, so operating money.
Councillors? Councillor Bilney?
Yeah, through the chair, just clarification on something, unless I've misinterpreted what I read. Godfrey Road was originally 70,000 for 175 metres of seal, and that has now increased to 104,000 for 200 metres of seal. Just want to know what's occurred there.
Yeah.
Through the chair, if I may, sorry, and I just picked up on the 200 metres, so the length of the road has not changed, sorry, that's a typo. We went out to ask for quotes for contractors to deliver the works. The lowest quote came in higher than what we originally thought it would be. So we haven't actually awarded the contract pending the approval of this second budget review. Because obviously we can't increase the capital budget. So that's basically the revised forecast spent to be achieved by the end of this year. If it passes through the budget review, we'll notify the contractor they've confirmed that they can still deliver, pending weather obviously, but within this financial year.
Yep, and that clarifies things.
Yeah.
Councillors, any more questions on 13.2? Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? So that's yeah, 6-1.
Who are going?
13.3, fees and charges, part 2. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Wilts, moving. Seconder. Councillor Hodge. Councillor Wilts.
No, nothing really. This is just chapter 2 of the increase to our fees and charges. So I'm happy with what's presented here.
Thank you. Councillors? Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. Um, 13.4, revenue policy. Have a mover for 13.4. Councillor Hodge. Seconder, Councillor Cardew. Councillor Hodge.
I'd like this straight to go to the manager of finance and just give us an update, please, on what has actually changed in here. Or is there any significant in the revenue policy?
If I may, through the chair, there's no significant change to the revenue policy. It's very similar to last year. Relevant updates of names and dates and those types of things have been made. It outlines the direction that we wish to take in the development of our budget, which we've started that process, so our activities align to this policy as it has done in previous years as well. It is good practice to adopt this policy prior to the adoption of the budget, which is planned for next month. And this policy will also be included within those documentation. So it's part of the budget process, but not a lot has actually changed from the previous version.
I do notice under 4.6.1, funding of new truck infrastructure development, which is fine. The council requires the developer to pay reasonable and relevant contributions to the cost of physical and social infrastructure required to support their development. Council may choose to subsidise the cost from other sources to incentivise development, and if it is in the community interest to do so. What a great
Aligns with our incentive policy that is in place.
Also picks up the sporting club concessions that we've introduced since the last revenue policy.
Very good, thank you. Councillors, final call on this one, 13.4. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. 13.5, sole supplier. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillors?
I'll move.
Councillor Clifton's moving. Councillor Hyde, Councillor Wills. Councillor Clifton.
Maybe perhaps Manager Finance would like to talk to us.
To explain, absolutely. So this list of suppliers is suppliers that we've identified across the organisation that are specialist or sole type suppliers for all particular activities. So some of the instances are we advertise through SEEK, so we nominate to have them listed as a sole supplier as such. There are other providers that could potentially do that, but it's not in our local papers, it's not in the area that we want to. So these are suppliers that we have identified that we will go to and to be in accordance with our procurement policy. Traditionally, we would get quotes or seek tenders or those types of things for certain activities, but some of the activities that we undertake as a council are very specialised. So we have, if we need to get specialised parts or a specialised service, or we have an existing supplier, then it makes more sense to go to that supplier to procure those goods or services. And so this is, we nominate these under a sole supplier list arrangement to comply with our procurement policy.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions on this one? Okay, so 13.5, those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. 13.6, Atherton Show Society licence. Can we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hodge. And a seconder. Councillor Wilts. Councillor Hodge.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Yeah, it's good to see that this licence has been enacted. Probably just one question I'd like to maybe not just decide today, because this is part of the licence, but would it be beneficial as part of the licence for the Atherton Show Society actually do the bookings for Merrylands Hall? Because, and I'll give you the main reason why, is that lots of times, I'm led to believe, is that the people who actually hire the hall don't clean it properly. So the next time the next group comes in, actually the Show Society clean it up for them. And that's the main reason. They're there, their officers are there. So I just think it's a common sense thing to do, to give them the booking. It doesn't have to be part of this resolution, but if it's possible, or later on, it can come back to council. But I'd just like to note that.
Yeah. Do you have any comment on that, Phil?
Oh, look, through the chair, I can make a comment on that. There is provision in the Local Government Act where council, because council facilities are something that you set fees and charges in relation to, so the appropriate mechanism would be, and there is definitions around authorised agents or employees of council, and that is an extended version would include volunteers for a show society, so they'd need to be appointed as authorised persons of council if they were going to facilitate that. And then you've got governance considerations as to how we're going to account for that and how we're going to manage those bookings, whereas currently it's going through our customer service function. And if there are any issues with the facility hire, then they should be actually reported back through our facilities team via customer service. So I guess that's the nutshell of the issue, but that's not to say that you can't make provision for it, but there's just a few considerations, council.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, we have a mover and a seconder for item 13.6. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 13.7, conversion of term lease, lot 11, CP 896922, council views request. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Wills and Councillor Bilding. Councillor Wills?
I'd like the legal and governance advisor to just give us an overview of this one, please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, councillor. Through the chair, look, this is a fairly straightforward abuse request from Department of Natural Resources. So the applicant by DNR has applied to have the term lease converted to a freehold parcel. So they've been the term lease holder for a number of years, I believe. As far as council is concerned, we've consulted with our planning team, and there's no interest of council within the parcel. So unlike some other views requests council receive where there may be roads or gravel pits and those sorts of things, there's nothing apparent in this parcel, so no off-alignment roads and that sort of thing. So from our point of view, there's not any real concerns. DNR will require the applicant to deal with any matters such as native title and the like over the state land. So our recommendation is to offer no objection to the conversion, subject to the department's usual requirements.
Very good.
Thanks, Phil.
Any more questions on this one, councillors? Those in favour of the officer's recommendation, 13.7. Thank you, carried. 13.8, standard licence terms, lot 11, CP 896922. Do we have a mover? Councillor Cardew. Seconder, Councillor Hodge. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Phil if he could elaborate on this, and also whether we need to have a minor amendment to the officer's recommendation to include where any unresolved dispute will be brought back to council, so that if a licence agreement can't be agreed upon, it comes back to us. I'm not sure whether that needs to be in there, Phil, or was it in there, or what, but yeah.
Yeah, look, thanks, Deputy Mayor. Through the chair, look, I appreciate the suggestion. I guess a consideration for council is that, I mean, we're talking, I guess the idea of bringing this report is just formalising what we generally use as standard terms and conditions for our licence agreements. And the reason we decided to bring this to council is so that council has a line of sight of what those standard boilerplate terms are for our community licences. As you'll note, these are for the most part $1 a year per annum, mostly community licences. Any commercial licences are obviously subject to usual commercial terms and are ordinarily brought to council for consideration of those salient terms. I suppose just on the point of bringing back where there's an impasse, I suppose council needs to be mindful is if they are $1 a nominal lease,
or licence rather, whether it's in council's interest to be considering potentially fairly minor issues being tabled before council, or whether the preference is to be informed by the CEO, who has the delegated authority to negotiate and finalise the terms. So where we have that delegation to negotiate and finalise the terms, I guess it's a judgment call of the CEO to, if it's a significant matter, to bring that back before council. But for the most part, these are the nominal licence agreements, which we wanted to just try and give council a level of comfort or a line of sight over what those boilerplate terms are, because what we're finding is that in formalising some historic agreements where some groups might be used to certain terms, and we're actually trying to get a consistent approach to things, is we are reaching an impasse over fairly minor matters, and we're just trying to get that streamlined a little bit. So we thought if we can get some endorsement of those standard terms, it'll give us a bit of, I guess, clout in terms of finalising negotiations on those fairly minor things, because we don't consider that to be big implications on the community groups.
Thanks, Bill. I just got one more question for you, mate.
Yep.
On page 7 of that licence agreement, keys. In the first section, you got the licensor will be provided. Will provide the licensee with one key, and then in item 3, the licensee must provide to council when requested details of all persons processing keys. You're only given one key.
Yeah, so look, I mean, we can make some minor amendments to those terms. I guess the issue with that is that we've got a lot of facilities that are donated assets, which the keys may not be within council's key to life system. So what we've found is we're trying to understand what keys are out there. Given that council's taking responsibility for things like the fire compliance and electrical compliance matters, our facilities team need to be able to know who's got access to keys if we're looking at changing locks, or if there's a break-in or a theft and we're paying a locksmith to go and make all those keys key to life. We just want to have line of sight is the intent of that. So if we can issue, I mean, that's at the discretion of facilities as a general proposition as to how many keys are issued, but I guess the intent of that is so we don't have keys willy-nilly everywhere, especially in the event you have changes of committees and that sort of stuff. So perhaps a minor amendment would be to, that's the standard position at the discretion of the CEO or the authorised delegate to be able to issue keys to management committees, etc.
But mostly it's just the keys outside our key system.
Yeah, so that has been an issue previously, where we've requested keys for facilities, and like I said, it's primarily around compliance type issues where we have historic buildings where they're on council land but under the control of community organisations. But if we're taking on a compliance role, or we've got contracts for fire compliance or electrical compliance and that sort of stuff, we need to be able to have access to those facilities.
But I'm happy with this. I mean, if we can improve our licence, deal with our licence, because there's a whole heap, from my understanding, backlogged and been backlogged for quite some time. Just speed it up. Also,
we'll go Councillor Hayden and Councillor Billman.
So Bill, on page 7 of the conditions, whatever it is, the permission to use. So if I had a licence over a hall, let's say for meetings and for my purpose maybe of a club, can I sub-hire it out, like, to me, so then I can hire it out every week and get money off it? So is it still going to be on our list of bookings, or is it they have the right to do that?
Through the chair, so generally the nature of a licence is personal in nature, so it's not something that you have a proprietary interest, which would be akin to a lease where you're sub-hiring or subletting, I suppose. And so to Councillor Hodges' point earlier about the Show Society, the kind of arrangement that I would envisage with that would be that the Show Society would be acting as council's agent in that instance and hiring it on their behalf, as opposed to sub-hiring it and collecting the fees for it. So to answer your question, the nature of the licence wouldn't allow for subletting, and that's a pretty sort of common position, I suppose. So that wouldn't prevent council from also having that on its booking system if that was appropriate. So if you have a licence over it, they would just authorise a group to have an ongoing periodic use, I suppose, potentially at priority or with, in preference as opposed to just the normal booking. So as a standard booking sort of thing.
Sorry, one other question. So I did read, are we going to make sure they do the maintenance on the outside of some, like the lawn? Because the simple reason is some of the blokes in rodents, they get a phone call because they can't mow the lawn. They expect it done that day, and it is on their mowing list of things to mow maybe, but will the responsibility go on to these people who have the licenses?
Yeah, look, through the chair, I guess there's probably not a real, like a across the board answer to that question, because we do have facilities where there might be several users, and so to make that obligation on any particular one user can be difficult sometimes. Certainly where there's a primary user and they're the only one that are using a lawn area or a grassed area, for example, that might be appropriate. But I suppose in terms of the maintenance, it really depends on the facility that's being hired out and the number of users that are on that facility. Another one which is quite common is things like our electrical connections where we don't have separate metering. It's not a simple process in actually apportioning that cost if you've got users that are using it at different capacities and that sort of stuff. So it's a little bit of discretion required from the delegate or the CEO or the facilities team in terms of what's appropriate in circumstances. But certainly that is the intent of council's policy, is in light of the fact that they're nominal licence agreements, is that there's a reasonable cost shifted onto the organisation who is using the facility. So those maintenance type activities would be transferred onto the groups where we can.
Thanks. It was
just covered it off exactly what I was going to ask. So thank you.
Yeah. Councillors, final call on this one. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to 13.9. Priors Creek Public Art Expression of Interest. Do we have a mover and seconder of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hodge is moving, a seconder. Councillor Wilkes. Councillor Hodge.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Before I hand over to Gwyneth, yes, I'm happy to support this. I think the public art for Priors Creek will be significant, and how it interprets the place and how it looks and gives it that real community feeling. So that's all about I need to say, unless anyone else wants to talk.
Thanks, Councillor Hodge. Councillor Cardew?
Yeah, thanks, man. Well, I'm happy to support this also, but as discussed in our workshop the other day, Gwyneth, I want to really see a wow factor in our signage.
Through the chair, Deputy Mayor, we will do our best. We do have some amazing artists in our region. It would be wonderful to think that we could employ a local artist to develop that wow factor for council.
Maybe a sculpture of Councillor Cardew, you know.
That's handy. Don't forget that.
I probably won't answer that.
Okay, councillors, do you need to talk to anything there, Gwyneth? Or?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I think we've talked about it enough. It is a fantastic opportunity, and I think it really will help with the placemaking of Priors Creek and help to promote the region. So thank you for supporting.
Very good. Okay, councillors, those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay, item 13.10, table ends tomorrow. Do we have a mover and seconder of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Cardew and Councillor Wilkes. Councillor Cardew.
Pretty happy with the report, with the self-explanatory.
Thank you.
Happy with
Councillors?
Oh, yeah, just quickly too, it's all about careers. So if you'd like to expand on that, Mr. Mayor, right, if you wish, but basically.
Yeah. Thank you and good morning, councillors. Through the chair. So you've had the opportunity to read the report. I would also like to take this opportunity before answering to acknowledge our community partners on the project who've supported the Tableland Tomorrow's Career Program and supported young people in our region. The strong representation through our community and with over 40 organisations that have supported the project, including government agencies from the Department of Education, Department of Employment, Small Business and Training, and through the Department of Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander Partnerships. Strong representation across the industry. And you're absolutely correct, it is all about sustainable employment and careers for young people. So through this program, what we've been able to do is work with the community partners at the local level, has assisted agency officers that we've collaborated with to address the needs of individuals, and at a systems level, this has helped us to address the needs of disengaged and underrepresented cohort groups to positively re-engage into education and employment in the region. And it's also provided opportunity for leadership teams to consider systematic approaches to collaboration, such as said, resourcing models, where we can adjust and align our work with each other for the greater outcomes, and providing that united front, it's created better experiences for young people. For the young people specifically, a part of our program, this approach has actually resulted in creating a greater awareness and understanding of their career pathway options, leading to further engagement by individuals to community programs, training, apprenticeships, job opportunities, reduce the risk of falling through the gaps, and increase access to the use of career development services. And for our community, our approach has facilitated the efficient use of agency resources, encouraged greater outcomes for young people to re-engage back into society, an inclusive society with concise and consistent quality information from trusted sources. So we absolutely recognise the important relationship between quality career guidance and support to young people, employment outcomes, strong small businesses, and most importantly, a skilled workforce to the well-being of all Tablelanders and our community.
Good, thanks, Ray. Councillors? All right. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ray.
Okay, 13.11, Stock Route Management Act 2002, Delegation of Statutory Powers. We have a mover of the officer's recommendation, Councillor Cardew, and seconded Councillor Wilkes. Councillor Cardew?
No, thanks, Mayor. Pretty straightforward, just delegation and fixing up here the anomalies in the previous one, so no, all good.
Yeah, just tidying things up a bit.
Yeah. Any questions, councillors? Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. 13.12, Land Act 1994, Delegation of Statutory Powers. Do we have a mover? Councillor Cardew, and a seconder, Councillor Wilkes. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, no, same as the last one, Mr. Mayor. Pretty straightforward, all good.
Very good, thank you. Final call, councillors. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. Okay, item 14, note, do we have any notices of motion, or are they all business without notice today?
Notice of motion, Mr.
No notice of motion, good, thank you. Okay, so we'll go to item 15, business without notice. Councillor Clifton.
I have a number of Mr. Mayor, yes. Whichever one comes up first on your list.
Peterson Creek.
Peterson Creek. Chair, the motion that I'm proposing is up on the board. The council, and so I will seek to move that motion. May I read it out for the purpose of the
yes, please.
Gallery?
Yes, please.
The council instructs the CEO in view of the concerns expressed by community representatives of the Yungaburra Association, the Yungaburra Beautification and Yungaburra Land Care during a deputation brought to council on 25 May to investigate the land title situation along Peterson Creek between the Gillies Highway and Frawley's Pool by having discussions with Mr Malcolm McLeod and Mr Noel Dowling and or their respective representatives to prepare a report for the tabling at council which addresses opportunities for the transfer purchase of the land along Peterson Creek so as to confirm and maintain the walking track between the Gillies Highway and Frawley's Pool, and that the report is to be made available to the planning committee meeting scheduled for the 13th of July. That's a bit quick. Mr Mayor, I'd be happy to change that date.
I might just get some advice from the CEO on the content of that.
I take it that one of those owners has the application before council, is it?
There is a development application before council.
Just need to be mindful of that, I suppose, and any implications with that, but did you seek to make comment, Hillary, or? Did you seek to make comment about that? No.
So,
generally speaking, there are some conversations underway in relation to at least one of those landowners. The others, there's an application there and opportunities for negotiation under that process. But as long as we're not crossing over that, but we'd make sure any report addresses that anyway, Councillor Clifton, if there were areas which were no-go because of the fact that a planning application has been lodged, then I would say so. And can outline, maybe confidential in nature, some of the other issues that have to be resolved simultaneously in respect of some of that land. I don't want to say more than that in the public forum, Mr. Mayor.
So, a question for you, CEO: would it be wiser to say by having discussions with the relevant landholders and their respective representatives rather than just identifying two people, because it just could be.
I'm happy for that.
It could be more than one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And the other question was the time frame. Is that?
I'll advise if you can't achieve anything in that time frame. Also provide an update if we need to seek an extension on that time frame. We'll do so through the meeting process.
Okay, so we've got Councillor Clifton is moving that business without notice. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Wilts is seconding that. Final call, councillors, on this one. Councillor Kaji.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, I'm a bit nervous about this. We're dealing with private land. I mean, I appreciate the good work that those community representatives, that the community members do out there. It's fantastic. But this has developed over a long time on private land, which hasn't been an issue up until now. We have in the environmental space many changes that have evolved during that period of time. One being biosecurity on rural or farming land. The other is with the subdivision application that I believe is in the council. There's going to be issues there. So I'm very nervous in how much resources that we're going to be putting into this. Yeah, so I understand the importance of it, but it's something that's been carried out on private land over a very, very long time, and now circumstances are changing because of influencing factors beyond our control. So I do not think that we should be getting too far involved where we're operating outside what a local government would normally do. While I'm happy to support it in the short term, I'm going to be very cautious of any outcomes that particularly incur a cost to council, or a significant cost to council, or if we end up in a legal battle between property owners. So I'm nervous.
We'll go Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Billman.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. To me, all the motion is asking for is for the CEO to investigate the land title and to prepare a report. Now that the matter's been raised through deputation, I think we have an obligation to respond, and we can't do that without having informed knowledge as to what the actual situation is and whether there are opportunities to progress as per the deputation, or whether the desired result of the Youngborough residents can't be achieved. So to me, that's my interpretation of that, that all we're doing is asking the CEO to investigate and report back to us.
Thanks. With Councillor Billman.
Yeah, through the chair. Look, I'm just wondering why we've got a report that's going to come to council in due course from the planners. I would assume a lot of these issues would be addressed, or I'd hope they'd be addressed. I mean, we talked about one point along the riverbank, but there's actually a user of a cycle trail that's actually got legitimate rights to be there. They've gone through council process to get a operational works permit, etc. So, you know, it's not just one group. I think they all should be looked at, and that should be in the report that comes to council, in my view.
Yeah, Councillor Carter.
I just want to make a comment on what Councillor Bennett said about, you think that would be, this would be looked at as part of the subdivision application. Subdivision application is not going to address those issues. I mean, that's not what it's for. A reconfig application is reconfigure around the boundary lines of the reconfiguration. So it's not going to address other issues, or expected to address other issues outside that. If we want to particularly address those issues, then we need to support something like this. That's all I want to make. I just want to clarify. Yeah. It's not part of a subdivision application.
So we'll go Councillor Billman and Councillor Hodgson.
Through the chair, I would imagine this would be a impact accessible application, so public would probably raise all these issues in the fullness of time anyway.
Likely, Councillor, and also what might be considered relevant condition, reasonable and relevant conditions in relation to that, in relation to parkland, etc. I can't forecast that though, and I don't want to get into trying to decide a planning application as part of this. They need to be kept distinct and separate.
Councillor
Yeah, look, it's something, I'm happy to support it, but yeah, it is, there is some issues, and one of the main ones is it's 2 blocks of the planning application, 6 and 8 I think it is, which the track goes right through there. So that's why we suggest before we have a workshop about it, before it comes to the planning meeting, because there's no doubt if people buy those 2 blocks, there's no way in the world you would allow people to go walking through in your block. So it really has to be really workshop, and we'll get it another doubt. So I'm happy to support it.
Councillor's final call. Councillor.
Look, there's nothing hidden in this motion, and there's no desire to exclude anybody from it. And I think by passing it over to the CEO in this way, we would rely upon his good services to make sure that bike riders and all sorts of other people, everybody who had a stake in it, would be able to discuss it. That such a forum has not been held yet, and this is not a new problem. It's new. It's reinvigorated because of this development application that's in, and because of one landholder going back on a long-term agreement with Youngborough Landcare, and yet another landholder wanting to take an alternative view. Somewhere in the middle, there may be common ground that suits everybody, but I hope I haven't inferred in that motion that anybody should be excluded. I'm happy to change the if people feel that groups or individuals are being excluded. I don't see that there, but I'm happy to take that on board and change it if someone wants to. Apart from that, I strongly support it on the basis of the deputation that was put to us today.
Okay, councillors, those in favour of Councillor Clifton's business without notice? Carried. Thank you.
One Mississippi.
Councillor Clifton.
The next one, if you like, that's there, so it minimises the load on Jackie.
The water.
Elizabeth's licence, I move this motion.
So we've got a motion up on the screen there, proposed motion. Councillor Clifton is wanting to move that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hodge is seconding. Councillor Clifton.
Thanks, Mayor, for the benefit of those people who are watching. I'll read it out. That the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer, provide the following: a list of outstanding stroke incomplete leases and licences with the date they fall due for reassessment and renewal. The list should include those already outstanding. A second, a report detailing the timeframe for the completion of outstanding stroke incomplete leases and licences for the year commencing 1 June 23. And thirdly, the report and associated timeframe is to be tabled at the ordinary council meeting scheduled for the 22nd of June, so in a month's time. A relatively simple motion as I see it. I don't see it from the perspective of the officers who have to compile this stuff, but I know that a number of us as councillors, I'm not talking amongst ourselves, really would like an update, so I've decided to put this forward.
So Councillor Clifton, just a question on that second dot point, should that be 1 June 2023 or 1 July?
Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies, it's 1 July. Yeah.
Councillor Finley.
Through the chair, look, I support the intent of what Councillor Clifton is asking. The second dot point, I'm just a bit unsure how we get an answer on a time frame for completion of outstanding incomplete leases where, you know, it's infinite. We don't know. We don't know that. It's up to the control of both parties whether they want to sign something or not. So it's pretty hard to put a date on that, I think. But I do understand your intent.
Councillor Clifton.
Thanks. Just in reply to Councillor Bildy, I'm expecting that the officers will determine which are the most important ones first and create a list that reflects their perception of what the priorities are. That would then give us some idea for me to be able to say that, you know, Group X, where there's such a backlog, you can't look at that. We can't be guaranteed until October. We can't be guaranteed of anything, Councillor Bildy, but we can have a clearer picture of where the situation is than we have now. No guarantees.
Councillors? Hillary, did you?
Sorry, through the mayor, if I could maybe just on that dot point too, because that's certainly that completion is definitely dependent upon bodies, and we do have matters that get held over for months because of not getting a response. So perhaps the report, the timeframes might be about the prioritisation and action rather than completion. If that would be an appropriate amendment to say, so we can say what the prioritisation is and the dates for actioning, rather than when we expect it to be completed. And that might be more useful information also for any community groups that you're talking about, that you actually know when we're doing something as opposed to when we expect it to be completed.
I'm happy with that alteration, Mr. Mayor.
So yeah, Councillor Clifton, Councillor Hodge, are you happy with the change? You have any comment on that one, CEO? Yeah. Okay, councillors, we've got We've got a motion up there, business without notice, moved councillor Clifton, seconded councillor Hodge with an amendment that you can see up there. Those in favour? Carried.
Another one.
Yes, councillor Clifton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This is a really, I move this motion. We need, of course, a second.
Councillor Clifton's got a proposed motion up there, business without notice. Councillors have had time to read that. Do we have a seconder for that?
You want to read it out?
Yeah, so yeah, we'll need to read it out. So councillor Clifton will ask you to read it out, and then we'll see if we can get a seconder.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. That council tables the report of the CT Management Group titled Service Planning and resolves to accept the recommendations of the service review and implement them. 2, instructs the Chief Executive Officer to prepare an implementation report for presentation to Council at the June Ordinary Council meeting. 3, the implementation report should cover the period July 23 to June 24 and commence on the 1st of July 23 and include an assessment of any cost of additional resources as well as the processes of further examination recommended in the report.
Thanks, councillor Clifton. Do we have a seconder for councillor Clifton's motion?
Yep.
Councillor Hodge is seconding. Councillor Clifton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, this one I think has some difficulties associated with it, which I've investigated to the best of my ability. But I'll just read this out to you if you don't mind. This motion seeks 3 decisions from Council about the most important and significant matter I think that we've faced in our term. The first one is the long-term financial viability of the TRC, which is detailed extensively in this report. The second issue is that I'm putting to you to discuss is the fundamental issue of transparency. The report brings both of these bedrock principles of local government before us today for consideration. The first decision I think we have to make is whether it's right and proper to make the report public. Under there are 2 sections of the Act, and I've sought advice from the Local Government Association of Queensland and received it. Under section 171 of the Local Government Act, there is a potential for myself as a councillor to be faced with a misconduct allegation because I'm referring to a document which may or may not be regarded as a confidential document. I do not see that could be the case because I have personally not breached any rules of confidentiality, and because I'm placing the report before you, the council, for your decision to make it public. I have not given the report to any other person, Secondly, I believe there can be no misconduct for a council if it properly makes a decision like I'm asking you to make today. So the first one is tabling the report. If the motion is successful, means that the report becomes a public document. The second point is the second decision is whether we are prepared to accept the recommendations in the report. We've had the report since February 23, we commissioned it, we've had it, we've workshopped it. The report has been prepared by a highly reputable national firm, and I believe it's prudent to follow their advice. We have workshopped the report with staff, And I do not think that this is a matter which is in doubt by either you, the councillors, or by the staff, that we should not implement the recommendations of the report. So this second part of the motion seeks simply to officially confirm that. And the third element, is whether you think it's reasonable to set a time frame for implementation and then be involved in the carriage of that time frame. I have referred in the motion, in the letter, the covering rationale that goes with it, to the budget cycle towards 24-25, which begins in the latter part of 23, perhaps November, December. It is but a short time to the end of the year in planning terms, and we must get on with it if the necessary consideration of each aspect of the report is to be properly explored. We've got to start now. We've got to start all these minor reviews, documents and examinations. I'm aware, in the covering note that went with the rationale, we have made a very good start already with the asset management reports, and I'm certain that the officers are really hopping into it as best as they could possibly do. As the author of the motion, I'm happy to take, subject to the Mayor's rulings, happy to take questions from councillors about my approach, my aims, what I'm trying to achieve. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Clifton. Councillors, comments, questions?
I'm happy to support it. I'll just refer it to the CEO, long as it's proper.
The report's been progressed in accordance with the timeframes that were discussed with council at this point. I'll let you know if we can't achieve those timeframes. Happy to provide status reports. I would just like to consider, I suppose, the table of the report and making public of the report more fully before that occurred. That's all. Just to again review it and ensure that it doesn't make statements which could give rise to, for example, industrial relations type issues. Haven't examined it through that lens, that's all. But maybe the General Manager has pretty much carriage of the project, so did you have any comments about the suitability of the report to be tabled and made public? That's all.
Oh, I'd like to take that on notice.
Yeah,
I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, look, it's my view. I don't think we should be making that document from CT public. I don't think it's in our interest as an organisation. It's a really important document. It's been done by a highly professional firm that does this work. What they've provided us with is a methodology for our service planning. They haven't done the service planning for us. It's our task, in concert with CT management, to actually process through the methodology of the service planning. But look, I don't think it's wise for council to table the document. It's a document we commissioned for a very specific organisational and service level review. Personally, I don't think it's smart for us to do that. I'll flag that should Councillor Clifton's motion not get up, I'll have an alternative motion that suggests a quarterly review from the CEO on the progress that council is making on the service level review, which is in our 23-24 budget. All the recommendations from the service level review were in our budget. So should Councillor Clifton's not get up, I'd be proposing that we have quarterly updates from the CEO on the progress. And I also have concerns about the time frame on this one in terms of having a report back to council in June. We're in the middle of trying to bed down our budget, so that's a big commitment. But look, I'm just flagging that I'll have an alternative motion suggesting quarterly review of the progress on the service level review.
Perhaps appreciate the opportunity to discuss it with the authors just trying to think of what the words might be. If the authors have no concerns and have no concerns from an industrial perspective, I don't have a problem with it being made public, provided that it's not going to generate issues to do so. It would ordinarily be a matter that we would be able to consider a confidential matter under the provisions given to us under the Local Government Act, and it's like a little bit more opportunity to consider those before accepting them, or before agreeing that would be a sound way forward, without wanting to be provocative. Just want to be clear, both the authors and in my own mind, that it is not a matter that we would ordinarily keep confidential under the Local Government Act provisions.
I did take advice from the LGAQ, and although they didn't write back to me about the particular matter of confidentiality, we did go through Rule 254J, which is the ability to close a meeting to have a discussion. And they were of the view, and I am of the view, that this process of discussing this report, for example, could not move into confidentiality because there's nothing in there that meets the confidentiality requirements of the Council's deliberations. They are, I'll just run through them, the appointment of discipline or dismissal of the CEO, industrial matters affecting employees, and I've canvassed that one, and I'm taught this report does not canvass industrial matters of employees now, but in the future, sometime in the future, and only subject to council decision. So nothing, I don't see that it's a confidential matter to say we are considering something in the future. Otherwise we'd never be able to say anything, which may affect staff. We wouldn't be able to say. The third one is the local government budget. Making this document public does not affect our budget deliberations. It may in the future, but the future budget has not been formed. The third one is rating concessions. It doesn't affect rating concessions. The next one is legal advice obtained by local government or legal proceedings involving the local government. This is not involved there. Matters which may effectively direct the health and safety of an individual. That's not a matter not involved here. Negotiations of a commercial matter, and it's not involved. Negotiations relating to the taking of land by the local government, and then any other matter that the local government is required to be kept confidential in their negotiations with the Commonwealth and the state. So that nothing in that report, as far as I can see, and in with my discussions with the LGAQ, would fit into those normal confidential frameworks that we're designed to operate under. So that's made me think that it can be a public report. I think in the interest, this is a watershed moment, this report, a watershed moment of the last, if you like, 10 or 15 years of council administration. And when we put it into effect, it will have a significant, I don't see why it shouldn't be a public document. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Not disputing the LGAQ's advice, but the only concern I have is in relation to industrial relations considerations. I don't know whether you provided the report to the LGAQ or not, Councillor, and it's a matter for you. But I don't have that advice. It's not in front of me, so I can't comment about how they've reached their view in relation to industrial relations. And I'm not saying that I would reach a different view. I'm saying that I have not considered the report through that lens, and I have not considered the report or discussed with the authors of the report whether or not they may consider anything in their report to be their proprietary information. So it is only those two aspects. I'm not disputing LGAQ's advice, and I'm not disputing your take on it, saying I haven't considered it through that lens and would like the opportunity to do that before it is made public.
We'll get Councillor Bromley, then Councillor Cardew.
Through the chair. Just, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous to table something without proper confirmation from General Manager. Would the author be prepared to table subject to confirmation that there is nothing confidential in there, for example? And then, you know, you get both avenues are there for. That's all we're asking is to make sure that there is no property issues there.
Councillor Cardew.
I mean, I don't have any problem putting this up, but in line with what you're trying to get at, would it be appropriate, Councillor Clifton, to defer this until the planning meeting in 2 weeks' time to allow the CEO to get advice or to digest what's being proposed, just to make sure there's no arbitrary obligations? It's only 2 weeks.
Sorry, Councillor Cardew, we couldn't take it to a planning meeting.
Why?
It can only be a planning matter.
Not from my understanding.
No, the CEO has the right, under the terms of reference, to bring it to a planning meeting if he so desires.
It's got to be in general, it's got to be consistent with the meeting, though. It's not, I can't just drop any matter. It's not planning related.
I thought that's how I said it. We'll check.
But anyway.
Now I'm prepared to acknowledge the comments by the CEO and by Councillor Billy and Councillor Cardew, and perhaps some of the other reservations that other councillors have. And I'm prepared to take out number 1 for the time being. But I'd like to see 2 and 3. I do not think we can, and I'm not suggesting officers are wasting time at all. We are not suggesting or inferring that. We as council need to formally give the officers a clear go to get on with it, and then we need to be involved in understanding it as well. And if you like, making comments on the report and receiving further reports. In that context, I'm happy to take that out for the time being.
Councillor Cardew.
Well, why don't you include it in the, put it on the end, or put some word into the effect that, because the report's going to come, if 2 and 3 get up, a report's going to come to the June meeting anyway. Why can't you have that clarified whether the service level report can be publicly put as made as a public document? Because that can be part of the report coming to the June meeting. That gives the CEO time enough to.
Yeah, that could be end of number 1. You could leave number 1 in. Subject to the advice of the CEO.
And come back to the June meeting with the other report. Would that be fair enough?
Mr. Mayor, I see there are lots of things that we need to keep, need to keep to ourselves. But this report has such long-term significant ramifications about the way the TRC, as a public body, we're all public servants, whether we're elected or not, and it is a public body. We're not a small BHP of the world. We're not anything like that. We are a public body. We have, and that's why I said one of the important things to consider is the issue of how transparent we need to be. And all of us know as councillors that there was always a great deal of suspicion being placed on, directed towards the council, not necessarily publicly, but publicly to us. And I think that this is an exercise which, in the long course of time, should be made a fair one. That's my final word. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, in addition to that, would you like to put it on there to be brought back to the June ordinary council meeting?
front end that. Subject to advice at the report. Take that up to the top.
Up here.
The blue.
Yeah, the blue, just, no,
Oh.
just before table.
Yeah.
Just so it reads a bit better than that does at the minute. Yeah, no, in front of the table.
In front of.
Yeah, in
Make
front
all
of,
subject to the blue. Put it in front of the red table.
The whole
Yeah.
sentence.
Yes.
get rid of to be brought back to the general meeting. No, yeah, that's it. Take that out. At the June meeting, and just get that back, yeah. It's at the June meeting.
Yeah.
No, after service planning, at the June ordinary meeting. After service planning in one.
Yep.
Yep.
Do we just really need to confirm what that advice we're seeking, subject to the subject to the advice about confidentiality?
Yeah.
It's not actually subject to warning, it's subject to our decision as to whether we want to release it or not. And we'll make our decision.
The main reason would be it's in the confidence. I guess it either is or it's not, and that's the advice that'll come back.
Well, I think confidentiality is one thing, but there's, you know, it is a far-reaching document, and do we want that all laid out? The journey to work through it is one we're currently on.
Yeah, but I agree with what you're saying, but I'm just trying to work it in with what the intent of Councillor Clifton was, and that was about tailoring for transparency.
I'm personally happy with those.
I can work with that.
Okay, I'm happy to say that.
Understand the elements that need to be considered.
So dot point 2 shouldn't refer to the June meeting, should it? Because the advice is coming back to the June meeting.
About the tabling of the report, the implementation report. It doesn't have to disclose any potentially sensitive or commercial and confidence matters from the report. It's just the timing to implement the recommendation, so I don't have a problem with that. That broad timing's been provided to council previously.
Very good.
Councillor Clifton, you happy with that? What's up there now?
I am, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Councillor Hodge?
Thank you.
Yeah. Final call, councillors. Those in favour of Councillor Clifton's recommendation? Carried.
If I just may thank the forbearance of councillors and senior officers for that, for that long session.
Knocked away now, members, councillor.
Thank you.
You got one more, is it?
No, I don't.
That's it. Oh, unless you've got some more hidden.
I can make one up.
Okay, councillors, we've looking at the time, it's after midday. We have any more business without notice from anyone? No, okay. So what I suggest we do, council, is take a short lunch break, and then we come back and we'll go straight into confidential. So,
Do you think these are going to take long?
well, it's a bit deadly, Kev, if you so they don't take long, and then you go in.
I've got 3 items left. I don't think there's not in one, but
Could we break at least for a bathroom?
Yeah, okay, so we'll do a short,
Yeah, let's get a cup of tea.
10-minute break, okay? So we'll break for 10 minutes. We'll get started again, at 12:20, thanks, Jackie. Now, the next item is councillors confidential. We're starting at 16.1, so can we have a mover to go into confidential? Councillor Wilts is moving that we go into confidential. Councillor Clifton is seconding. Are we good, Amanda? Yeah. So those in favour of going into confidential? Carried. Thank you. Okay, councillors, we'll return to item 16.1, Traffic Management Initiative. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hodge. Seconded. Councillor Wilts. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Item 16.2. TRC 2022-15 curbside collection contract award. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Wilts. Seconder. Councillor Clifton. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 16.3. 16.3, Carina Home for the Aged, Reserve Matters. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Cardew. And a seconder, Councillor Wilts. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Okay, councillors, that being the end of our June ordinary council meeting, we'll call the meeting closed.